What is that thing that whatever you're doing, especially you've been uplifting a lot of lives. It's been almost 30 years plus that you have dedicated in uplifting the lives of the vulnerable, of the underprivileged, but not made announcements of it, and that kind of grace you have. And it has to come from somewhere. Where did this come from?
Well, that's a fantastically deep question. I don't know about where exactly, but I know the direction was given by Her Majesty, who in her role as the patron of the environment and the renewable natural resources sector, trekked through the length and breadth of the country and got to know the local communities firsthand, got to feel their pain and their hardship actually, because Her Majesty refused. At that time she was still the queen, right? Yes. But she refused to ride on the pony or the horses that were arranged, but chose to walk every step of the way. It was difficult, it wasn't easy. You had uphill inclines and down barely any paths sometimes. And people just say it's Bartanigillam. No? So it's literally people would just collect their bamboo, I think, and slide down the hill in that fashion. So hardly any steps. But Her Majesty, in all of these trips, she knew why she was doing it. And I had the privilege of being someone who watched that very closely. And I thought, if Her Majesty can do it, anyone can and should.
Yes.
Because if Her Majesty says, well, our pain is very transitory. Just now we're just passing through their village. It's just for a day or two. But these individuals have to live in this community under these circumstances. Are we going to leave them like this? So every evening, I mean, it wasn't just the treks, right? The treks were tough, but then there were these long, lengthy community consultations, sometimes late into the evening, sometimes during the midday, wherever they were congregated, then Her Majesty would stop and listen to them.
The ground realities.
Absolutely, to hear it directly from them of their hardships. But one thing that was very clear was that none of them thought that they were significantly poorer or less able than others. So there was this sense of serenity and calm and peace in them in spite of their hardship, and that was quite a revelation, because one would think, like, when we see sites of poverty, you expect them to be really pathetic, but they weren't, and they had a solution to the problems and challenges they actually felt, and they felt that it's just that they didn't know how to organize themselves around to getting it sorted out.
Yes.
So they lacked that organizational skills, which, we ventured on a couple of years in that way of just following Her Majesty on foot to all of these remote rural areas. Quite a lot of very interesting stories there. But having said that, I think if you are looking at the innate nature of a human being, I guess you're molded from childhood itself. And so I grew up in a household that used to be more or less like an open dharamsala. Our kitchen was open and
always fire burning.
Yes, 24/7. And we used to have people, travelers and monks and nuns and Rinpoches. They would just, most of them we didn't even know, but they would be there. And so we grew up in a house like that, and you saw all the good work they were doing.
There was so much kindness and warmth in that house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have been, it's been a privilege, and that is where I'm like...
But you remember that, right? Yes. So it's also what my parents would say, it's about how you make people feel. You might not have the best home, but it's how you welcome people in and make them feel comfortable, feel that they're wanted in that space. And so, yeah, growing up, of course, there were times when I used to get quite upset also, because there was never a quiet moment, because you had to like literally, either you were cooking or helping with the preparation or cleaning up after that. And so, but in all of that, you learned one thing. The more you give, the more you get. As sort of the currency of life, I think kindness, you just pay it forward. And all these fantastic people didn't just come and sort of, they left something intangible behind as well. And those were the life lessons that they shared with us of all their travels, of where they're coming from and where they're going to, so sort of what they're expecting. So you got a glimpse of that even as a child, and that kind of really molded. I used to be quite a voracious reader. So reading all of those books and things like that also inspired you. But at the heart of it all, it was it always comes back to the fact that
how you were raised, and not very.
I wouldn't say it was a luxurious life at all, but
the values that you were surrounded with, you kind of absorbed.
Yeah, if you had two, you felt you had to give away one, so that you can make space for the new one to come. So it was always something of that nature. So it doesn't. I mean, you really don't have to be rich in material wealth to feel,
feel abundant.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sense of abundance comes not because you have amassed so much, but it is in the giving, and in that you want to be useful, you want to be helpful, and and I guess it's a thought process also, where you're not really worried about what others say also. After a while, you really don't care, because that's who you are and that's what you want to do with your life. If you're in that spirit,
kind of space.
You're happiest when you're giving.
Himela, that's actually the inherent nature of us.
So all of us, I think, at some
level,
block
it
absolutely
as we grow older. But then we'll have to revive that back, especially if you had the foundation like that from early on. Because of this kind of environment that you grew up with, so much kindness and warmth, and more about interdependence rather than individualism. But because I know that when you were at a very high position in the civil service. For you to make a decision, you were the Policy and Planning Division head. And that was almost 22, 23 years ago. 23 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you had stayed on, you would be, in a very conventional sense, make it as a very high-ranking civil servant. But at a drop of your hat, like you made a decision to be part of a very dear organization which has made such a difference, and to build it up from the start. Of course, it is Her Majesty's vision, but for Her Majesty also to see that you will be able to take it on, and for you to say yes, and that I think comes from a lot from your it just doesn't come easy.
This is just the perfect job that I could ask for. So of course I couldn't be presumptuous and think that Her Majesty would think I would, automatically. How can I go and say I want that job? I couldn't. So I was waiting for Her Majesty, because by then I was already volunteering most of my time.
Yes.
I had my full-time work in the Ministry of Agriculture. Like, as you know, we're an agrarian society, so the Ministry of Agriculture is one of the larger ministries, and quite a lot of programs, and the planning division, policy and planning division, was quite central to all of what was happening there. And we were focused on how can the ministry bring an integrated approach to serving our people in the rural communities. So I was already working for the rural communities in some sense, but mostly on paper, right?
Oh, no.
So making sure we got the right programs, making sure that our policies were aligned. We looked at, and everyone at that point said that the Land Act was sacrosanct and none of us could touch it.
Yes.
But we felt there were some gaps and some issues, so we said, I don't think improving on anything would be, frowned upon. And even if it is, let's just do it as an academic exercise.
Yes.
So that's how we started with reviewing the Land Act of, the older Land Act and trying to see how best we could make full utilization of the land that we are blessed with. As you know, the mountainous terrain doesn't really allow for too much arable land, and that too, if it is restricted in so many forms and ways and manners, that doesn't benefit. If the policies of the forestry department, for instance, is in conflict with the livestock needs and requirements and things like that. So it gave me the space to actually help align those. So I spent my very short duration in that post trying to align the policies of the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry at that time. Anyway, so fast forwarding to Ajiska, I was waiting for it. It wasn't coming, but by then I was like, getting quite impatient also.
Yes,
So
yes.
one fine day, those were the days before the mobile telephone, so I got a call on my phone, and it was Her Majesty. And it says, well, I think we need you at the foundation. Would you come? As I was just, as I was waiting for this call.
Yes.
So, of course I will. So that was it. And then I got a second call, was then Her Majesty told me, His Majesty wants you to know that you're giving up a very,
Prestigious.
not prestigious, but as a very promising career,
Yes.
and moving to this, newly hashed Tarayana Foundation, right?
Yes.
So I had said, His Majesty wants you to think and answer. Because
Yes.
I'd already said yes.
Yes.
So then I repeated the same thing. I said, I just have one answer, and my mind's already made up. I've already, I've already said yes, and that's it.
And it was because of that epic journey that
Yes, because we,
Her
I
Majesty
guess,
and
we
you all
shared.
took together and the ground realities.
Yes,
and,
there was
and
so
then,
much
and
that
then
could be done.
bonding and the feeling of you all were very much in alignment.
Yeah, that too, and I felt I could do a lot more good, practically, being outside of the system than being the chief of, the head of policy and planning, where I was just pushing paper at best, and decisions were basically up to other
So
people.
Chimi, you didn't get your big labels, the convention of big labels, but we do see you that you've lived a very, because of this decision that you made early on, I call it really a fulfilling life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How do you feel now at this point, dedicating this many number of years, 20 plus years only for Tarana, and also 10 plus years.
16 years in the government.
Yeah, 16 years in the
and
government.
I'm actually still on secondment, so I'm not really retired. I'm still, my name is still there in the civil service cadre. But I've been working for the Tarayana Foundation for so many years that I don't think there's any two ways about this. But this is a lifetime's commitment. So there's no expiry date on it. I guess when I drop dead, maybe the work stops. But till then, if you can make a difference, why not? No,
this is what I've been hearing from not only during the talks, but people that who have a certain viewpoint, a very vast kind of viewpoint about life. They kind of are like this, Mela. There is passion, then there is this word called commitment, and there is no such thing as retirement.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because essentially, how do you retire from something you love doing? No? So, of course, from the practical point of the job at Tarayana, I've already handed over all executive functions and decision making to a younger team. Sonampam is very capable. So she's been at the helm of Tarayana for the last 3 years, 4 years now already, since 2021. So I am supposedly taking a back seat, but I always find something more creative and something that I would like to do for a community or the other. And then we also have started the new research center in celebrating Her Majesty's 60th birthday in 2015. So that also needed some attention. So I've been focusing more on that, trying to sort of develop that into a think tank. Because how does think tanks happen elsewhere? You need empirical evidence to base your the policy decisions on, or if you are a thought leader, then you need some basis for why you're thinking that way, and then basic research needs to follow to give you that empirical data. So the research center provides me the perfect opportunity to also help steer Tarayana from the back in looking at what they could do more, what they might have missed out in their earlier projects, or what, also what worked, what didn't work for the communities. And these are lessons learned that shouldn't go unattended. It has to be shared so that people don't make the same mistakes. So mistakes, I don't see them as mistakes anyway.
Just
those are lessons.
Lessons and learning further. And,
so then in a new project development phase, then these should be addressed so that we're not repeating the same things. So it's actually, it gives it, that there are so many dimensions to being a social worker, that you're a motivator, you're trying to goad them into doing things, or you're like, you have to, in a way, wait for them to see where the community wants to go. They have to tell us, give us the direction. But in many cases, that direction, in my earlier days, I think we used to be in a hurry to get started with the work. But then at the back of my mind, we always knew that if we wanted it to succeed, we had to wait for them to come on board. We can't push it, we can't shove it down their throats. It doesn't work that way. So that ownership of any program or project at Tarayana has to be with the community. That's why we call ourselves a grassroots organization. It's about empowering them. It's not that they, like people who might not have material wealth, I don't think they're poor in their thoughts and in their generous, whatever little they have, they're willing to share it with the next door neighbor or to a stranger that comes by. And definitely to those of us who were walking through, they were very open-hearted and generous to a fault. So all of that then had to be reciprocated in a manner that we didn't throw their sense of dignity aside. We had to help maintain their dignity while also helping them to address the gaps that they faced.
So you were very sensitive, you were handling things very sensitively.
We had to, actually, we have to do that, because that's the whole point of development, right? It's not just about adding material wealth and value, but it's also enriching their own thinking, of appreciating their own knowledge base. Because they're very shy initially, of course, most of these community members, but one would think that
not coming across as pouring the water down your throat kind of thing.
No, we can't afford to do that, because they are the custodians of their environment. They've survived for this long. If they weren't intelligent or clever or kind to each other and they didn't have coping mechanisms, how do you think they would have survived? So just the fact that they managed to live a decent life, with the very limited resources they had access to, shows us that they have inherent capabilities. So it's not just a hunger, empty stomach that they're born with. They have two hands, they have a good brain that's working in their head, that's kind and passionate, and maybe not altogether there for organizational purposes, but if you show them how it's done, then they can do it.
I'm just going back to the time when you were just starting it out.
Yes.
And I remember, this is my personal account of when I was working as a fresh graduate in Revenue and Custom.
Right.
And
On the steps.
on the steps, I think
I
you were in
remember
the
that.
building, the team building mode.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, although fresh graduate and we had studied all the time here in the country, and you told me the word, do you know CSO? Would you be interested to be in a CSO? And I said, what is a CSO? Then you said it's civil society organization, and then it's very, very new. And even as a graduate, it was very, it was just a new thing for me. Even the word itself was, and later on, of course, I was already in civil service then, and then somehow when I came out of civil service, and then I was, but VAST was something without knowing that it was a civil service, a civil society organization.
Right.
Doing things like that. That's just a label. I'm just reflecting and looking back. I'm feeling very grateful to very early on. There were leaders like you and Aisha Kama who were setting the civil society tone. Thank God when I look at it in the right way, because even when people in a country want to do something, or not just for the country, for a community, usually most people come out very condescending, no? You want to be charitable, you want to be generous, and you want to be at the upper hand. And because you talked about right now how you all were, when you all were doing your Tarayana, the activities, programs, and reaching out to the community, there was this sense of like understanding the recipient is not just a recipient.
Right.
You are just filling in the gaps and bringing out. So I wanted to be just feel very grateful that very early on when civil society, very few had said. Now I think it's on 56.
I believe so.
And it's great to know that there are a lot of organizations wanting to do in different minority groups and all, trying to fill up these gaps. But I'm also grateful. Just wanted to sound that out.
Thank you.
Taking this opportunity.
I remember that also very well. We were busy looking at capable young individuals who would, be useful and would be able to take the civil society agenda further. And when I bumped into you that day on those steps, I think I just felt, okay, here's one prime candidate. If I don't ask, then it's,
so blank I was there. What does it mean to be civic or, you know?
It doesn't matter. You ended up doing, the same thing anyways. So it's good. It's good that I recognized it and you blossomed into it as well. So all in its time.
So what is it that that time when you were? Did you ever have, because of your exposure outside and studying, or is it more that civic sense of being able to do something for the social work part of it? Yeah. It's actually your whole life.
Yeah, it's
not
yeah, I think it kind of started early. I went to study in a convent, right, the Jesuit convent. So in the convent, we used to have something called, like every Saturday, I was on the Government of Bhutan scholarship to St. Joseph's Convent in Kalimpong. But every month there was a stipend of 20 niltrum. And that was a lot of money in those days. So with I think about 12 niltrum or something, I would buy books in Blyton and, when we were smaller. So in Blyton books, I would get 3 books, I think 4 rupees something per book, and I would get 3 books a month. And with the balance of the money, we could buy tuck, any sweets and biscuits and stuff. And then there was the system where you had to donate a little portion of what you had, all the tuck. And I would always be like volunteering to do that collection. And so they would give, and then Monday morning we used to promptly go to the local dispensary that was run by the same sisters of Clooney. They would run this dispensary. and it was a free dispensary for the community nearby. So lots of little children and all would come. And it was always a nice thing to be able to go in on Monday mornings and distribute these sweets to them. Sweets or biscuits or marbles sometimes. So it just depended on what you were buying. And then one would be, so I guess I started with the begging bowl even then. Now
So it has to start early on, Mola.
in reflection, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. We're still doing that for
You're
all
reliving
the
it. I can
courses.
see it
Yeah.
in your face to do that.
Thinking,
You're reliving.
I'd forgotten about that aspect, yeah, but that was something that all of us did.
Yes.
All of us did, and I think these are good practices, and you have to start small, young, when you're more impressionable, I think. And of course, at home, you literally had to give away half your toys, or like if you wanted a new one, your old one went to someone who needed it, or whatever. No? So it was, grew up in that atmosphere, I think.
So yeah, your atmosphere, your own family home, your members around you, then your school, having that kind of value set, kind of like it's
nurtured.
Yes, nurtured. It's a seed, and then because I think we do inherently, I believe that we do inherently have that kindness, generosity. But it has to be cultivated, nurtured, and over time cultivated, but as the years go on, you're fortunate if you are Rangilumtegi Memola, that you also get to have that. But some of us get taken away, and how do you see right now for a lot of younger people when we talk about volunteerism, to be part of an organization which is doing something? It does seem a bit, it's dwindling a bit. Is it because of the societal pressures and their own individualism that is now coming?
No, I think
that value system coming more strongly. And how do you want to?
It's a mix of a lot of influences. I could say the younger generation now are more distracted than we were. There's a lot more distractions. Let's put it that way: the internet, the mobile phones. During our time, I mean, we didn't have any of those luxuries. We had to create our own games and play with, if you didn't have a new toy, that was fine. We created your own toys, and sort of a piece of wood would become a truck, or, you use imaginations and create lots of toys. But the younger generation, I sometimes feel that they would like to volunteer more if their parents would allow. Because they're also worried what their parents will say. Normally when you volunteer,
when I hear stories from our really the elders, then I see that actually our 50 plus years ago, we were more interconnected with community, with the family, this one. Now these things are getting a bit away, and we seeing this. So what do you think? You're also you're very much into policy dialogues and also preparation and researching. And have you thought how you can bring your own experiences in the childhood and how it has really made you strong, stable,
so if you
much more larger than just being self,
If you look at many of the successful programs, the rural immersion programs are life-changing for our youngsters. Earlier, Tarayana used to arrange for young students from Thimphu to go and spend their summer break. Rukha was one place we'd send them to, or during the winter get volunteers and take them to a particular community where we were working in and we needed additional hands. And just those trips, just those 1 week immersions into these rural pockets changed their outlook. And the parents would come and tell me, oh my God, I don't know whatever you all did there, but he's become a totally different person, or
Perspectives
she's
got
become a
shifted.
totally different. No food wastage, no fuss, no hankering for new things. So there's actually positive influences all the way, but we're also limited by time because there's a lot of energy goes into taking young people around.
Yes.
And you need to be able to ensure their safety, ensure that the food is sort of, prepared in a way that they can consume. And there's a lot of considerations that needs to be taken into account. And as we got more hectic with the actual Tarayana programs, it became more difficult for us to arrange those immersion opportunities. But should we have sufficient resources, that's one program I would like to revive. I would like for the young, the Tarayana team to actually let youngsters engage in the rural areas, because
that's how we grew up, and for us also that was the space. And then there was this rice bank project programs.
I remember we contributed in those.
Beautiful programs that gives you at that moment you really don't grapple understand that why they're doing this, but it's only later on in life that you understand these things give you perspectives of
social immersion is one quick way of really putting yourself into the shoes of somebody else. So for city dwellers or people, urban dwellers, if you transport them minus their phones and minus their gadgets and take them and plant them in the rural setting for a week or two and see them really rediscover who they are as a person without these gadgets. So then that in itself is a good exercise. And of course, they come away getting to understand who they are better, that they are wholesome human beings, and who knows, they might even discover they have talents and skills that they were unaware of because of all the time they're scrolling on their phones. So that I think the social media pages that they see are very well curated, happy faces, often hide a lot of sadness and sorrow and loneliness, and so that people don't understand it. That at least children don't understand it. That these are just pictures for public consumption, not necessarily the story of their lived realities. So educating our young individuals would be necessary, I feel, because we have to give them the tools with all these if you buy a phone, it comes with instruction books and all that, but we don't seem to have a manual for how to raise your child. It never comes with the ready manual because each individual is different in how he or she expresses themselves and what will make them tick, what will help them rediscover their innate capabilities. So I think like organizations like VAST also give them hands-on experiential learning and experiences. I think those are critical, I feel, now more than ever.
Yeah, you also saw whatever Aja was doing and what VAST was doing.
I knew Aja before even VAST happened. So, yes.
And then when there was a point when VAST had no tangible space, and I keep telling this to a lot of our younger people, that Aum Chime has played a very crucial role when Aja was wandering around looking for a space, and because of his belief that there has to be a space for these young people to still gather and be productive, immersed in fun, but engage in something positive, and this very space.
Yes.
This is actually Alaya Gallery.
Yes.
Yeah, and but you've been so instrumental to give us the free will to do what we needed to do, given us that
That's Her Majesties, with Her Majesty's support, in really trying to nurture talented young individuals rather than let them. I mean, if you didn't have VAST, what would have happened to so many lives? So, that's also
deeply
yet another.
understanding that, Mola, but not.
But I did offer Aja not just this space, but the adjacent one where we're now, the research center, that whole area. I said this would be the gallery. That side would be where your artist studios, because there's more sunlight, natural light, and things like that. But
the constraints of funding. then
Aja at
yes,
that time was not. I don't think he was able to. Appreciate that things would improve and would go this far with VAST as well. So
yes, now and everything was incremental, but very consistent, and we are also still very we are grateful that we had this space and so many people came in out of it, and your life has been immersed with especially Tarayana's work, but I also know that you have. The international organization like Bees and Swan, and how have you got involved in it, and whether that has been fulfilling for you?
That's, we're doing such a lot of good work in the country, and there's always this belief that other communities in our region also would benefit from some of our initiatives, and if we could take what we have achieved in our own backyard and spread it around our neighborhood, everyone will be, the happiness quota might go up a notch higher. And so with that thought in mind, when, Tarana is a founding member of both these organizations, that we still have frequent conferences and call to action, and we challenge ourselves to better our services to uplifting women and women's plight in the region. Bhutan is lucky that way, like we don't have, is not so obvious, and I feel Bhutanese women have the choice of whether they want to head for a career or want to be full-time mothers. It's a personal choice. It's not that there's no opportunity for them. There is definitely equal opportunities, and if there's a nuanced sense of, okay, if when you become a mother, then now, particularly with maternity leave being what it is, 6 months, and that's sort of, it's good for the working women. In a way, they can become better mothers, and the bonding time with their children, the child that's born is also substantive. But on the other hand, the career takes a back seat then. After a gap of 6 months, I don't know which women will feel confident in just stepping back into the workspace, knowing that their colleagues have gone ahead in that duration. So I would like to propose, actually, and I have been actively promoting the concept of parental leave, not just maternal leave. Why is it the burden? I mean, I couldn't call it burden, but maybe the fact that you have to spend more time with your young child. But why can't fathers also chip in and get more leave, so that the burden becomes shared, and therefore when young women join workplaces, people are not immediately going to think, okay, my God, if we hire women, then we're going to lose them for 6 months at a stretch, and how many children will they have? And so all of those factors need not happen if we just termed it parental leave, and it could be shared between both father and mother. Like in other countries, I think with the World Bank, I believe just this afternoon they were mentioning that they were working at paternity leave, mandatory paternity leave, so that it's not just the mother who's looking after the baby, but the father's also equally hands-on and involved. So yeah, I think there is a lot of initiatives happening elsewhere, and I wondered whether Bhutan might also want to do that to ensure that, I mean, we are more egalitarian than any country in the region, but having said that, also we shouldn't just keep saying that and not do. There's a lot we could improve also, and so if you look at women's plight, I think those who are working mothers who are in
There's a
governments.
subtle, there's a subtle underlying challenges, Bhutan gidi, and it's not as blatant as in other countries, but for women especially who wants to have a career, wants to have a seat or a voice, and then being able to somehow also have this traditional
Roles.
understanding, yes, roles, unsaid, but then it's expected. And women themselves are also hard to batilam. For you grapple with those kind of
Decisions.
yes, the decisions are hard, and then to take a back seat.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always, I feel we can co-create this whole narrative of who gets to do the housework. I think Bhutanese men are more understanding that
Yes,
way.
yes,
They
yes.
jump in and help
They
with the
do.
housework, with the care work, but there's still a lack of the care work being accounted in the economy. So therefore, we often hear when men talk about their wives, and if someone is a homemaker, then they'll say, oh, my wife does nothing,
Yes,
stays
yes.
at home. I wish, like we always challenge those men to switch places and stay home and do nothing for a week and see what nothing looks like.
Yes.
You know?
What does nothing mean?
Yeah. So that's something that we have to give serious thought to. And much as we enjoy a lot of choices and freedoms, the shared responsibility of household work and the care burden, I think those are also things that if somewhere along the line, if these are accounted for in the total auditing or the accounting of our lives as such, if it gets featured, if it is saying, okay, we spend this much time equivalent to this dollar value or neutral value, if some valuation is given, we're not saying women need to be paid for the care work that is taking place, but instead of just saying they do nothing, acknowledge their work in contribution towards GDP. If women didn't stay home to do the care work, then someone else has to be hired to provide that service, and that service gets quantified, and there's a dollar value or a neutral value attached to that. Maybe then we appreciate what nothing actually costs. No?
So you have been giving a lot of your time,
Yes.
your expertise, and your insights into this organization, and you do feel that it
Yes.
is making. You will not see results immediately, but
I mean,
you
these
do.
are,
Yes.
these are sort of, it's long term for impacts to show up, but this camaraderie in the region, because ours, South Asia actually is one of the least integrated of, if you look at economies or trade, or if you look at any of these statistical things, although we are neighbors and very good neighbors at that, we don't trade with each other enough, or we don't share our knowledge with each other enough. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, SAARC came about to bring about this regional cooperation. But the less we talk about SAARC, the better it is, because it's handicapped by the fact that they've not been really able to make things work. And in the absence of formal platforms that are, necessarily working, we felt from women to women, the track 2, track 1.5, or whatever you call it, these avenues would also help in helping each other. Like the troubles or the plight of women in the region is sort of there are similar anchors and similar pivotal points that we could actually look at and address together. I think it would make that it would be more meaningful that way. And Bhutan, we are fortunate in a small population, so lifting the small population out of whatever issues or challenges is relatively is not as daunting. But if you look at larger countries, and we're talking about millions of women in the this unpaid care sector, unorganized sector, there's so much work to be done, and there are good examples of people working hard, like our member these networks have members in CSOs in all of our 8 countries, and so, of course, with the exception of Afghanistan at the moment, which is understandably not active at the moment, but in all the other 7 countries, we're very active, doing what we can to improve the lives and livelihood opportunities for women in the region. And we share, like, through knowledge creation, co-creation, seminars, as well as what best practices we carry out. Then we share those with each other. We do meet frequently. In fact, BEES network, which stands for Business, Enterprise and Employment Support for Women in South Asia. So that is a registered regional entity. It's been registered as a civil society organization, as a company limited by guarantee in Sri Lanka, in Colombo. So it has a secretariat, and we have regular meetings, and we work on, fundraising is still a challenge for these, but we look forward to being more active, and more successful in the days ahead. We're currently working on meeting some deadlines and that for submission of project proposals. So what we're doing at Tarayana, if we can do a fraction of that at the regional level, the impact, because we can reach out to so many more women in need. And that's something that I feel we should be part of, and help us also help the women in the region.
Although we are fortunate as a nation that we don't have this very blatant kind of challenges that women in the region face. Having said that, when we look at our positions in the leadership positions, there's still a lot of gap, and there have been debates like it's women themselves not coming forward. It's not because the policies are not conducive. How do you have to comment on?
No, I personally feel it's a choice. I mean, there are definitely capable women who should step into politics and sort of, be there.
Even in the civil society space, very few.
Civil society, I think we have a fair share, much better representation. Women are coming forward to do this because it's a calling of sorts. But in the parliament, we've now reduced from having 8% to, I think, it's sort of dwindling. And maybe for a reason, people really don't want to put themselves out there in parliament. Because, I mean, it's strange, but capable women are not really coming forward. And when we ask them why, they say it's a choice. They don't want to do that. So unless we can make it such that our politics are nice and clean, and also like they're able to do meaningful work.
So generally, I sincerely feel that women, when they make their choices and they give their full commitment, it are things that they really believe from the inside. Really, really. And things, if it doesn't look, then there's no purpose.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have this. I may be wrong, but this is my personal.
You've hit the nail on the head. I think was if they
not
see
for the
that,
label.
if women feel that they can contribute significantly by sitting in parliament, maybe there'll be more women coming forward. But as of now, I mean, do you really think anyone can really effect too much change sitting in parliament? Not just women, it could be men also. Like, who is making big waves? Who's impacting? Who's improving lives, livelihoods? Option. The first thing they do is talk about enhancing their own. I mean, they should be well looked after. That no doubt, because they are representatives of the population at large.
So this nagging, that conscious, this one, that I think it is quite heightened, I feel, with women. and they know that if I put my time and energy on something, it
should
has to
pay.
be
It has
to
to
be
pay.
well-meaning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not about yes, the perks and the label and the power that must be there.
Those are subsidiary, actually. I
No.
think for most women, we really need to, the Japanese call it the ikigai, you know, like the purpose. If you find our purpose, for me, it's service. And so Tarayana is the perfect, absolutely perfect platform. I'm fortunate I got this opportunity. But likewise, I think for you, you're more an entrepreneur and you're an artist and with a very strong community sense and artistic callings. So for you, I don't think you would be happy sitting in Parliament listening to all those dialogues and debates and over nothing, you know, like at the end of the day, are you able to change things that really impact lives positively? So if that can be shown, then we have enough examples of good women who have joined politics and who have
But
served
you do get
also.
swallowed up, no?
But
Then you just get diluted.
Like at the end of the day, okay, what they achieve, you
The
know.
apparatus is like way too complicated.
I think maybe
made complicated.
maybe the younger generation, they'll be more
We can
willing to
only
come
hope more.
forward, and because this impacts our standing in the world, you know, the
Because
global.
whatever said and done, it is the
Global,
highest
yeah.
instrument
Yes.
that needs to function well.
Absolutely, and also they are they have to uphold the constitution that we've been gifted with in a democracy that has a written constitution, and any violation of the constitution has to be brought to tasks and things like that. But who's doing it? We see rampant examples of when we have to question ourselves: are we doing the right thing? Is it is our constitution at risk? But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Yes.
So
since
maybe let's not go
yes.
there. But
we do need to
yeah.
make our voice.
But
and
I
then
think
we take
there are
yes.
No dearth of women leaders in this country. At the grassroots, I think if you look at who the Tsokpas are, there are quite a lot of Tsokpas who are female and
Even
very
at home,
vocal. At home, they're the homemakers, right?
Yes.
And decision takers.
Yes.
So it's not that we lack leadership skills. It's just that maybe the time is not right for women to surface in the parliament as the parliament proceedings are convened right now. Maybe this is not the setting. I don't know. Maybe it's just a matter of time when we get comfortable and people can come.
Until
and
that
join.
time, we pray and we make aspirations.
No, because people
it's important to have this
people
kind of
have to
good,
know. People,
mix of.
Yeah, people have to know that our global as within the Committee of Nations in the world, the number of female representation at the highest legislative body is important. In others, Human Development Index will never improve if we don't have, because we fail in that category. We don't have enough leaders in Parliament. So that kind of indirectly reflects that there are not enough capable women to fill those spots. It might be a little jaundiced view of it, but nevertheless, that's how we are ranked. And so long as we don't have women in Parliament, we're going to continue being the brunt of people thinking that there's gender absolute discrimination in the nation or things like that. So in order to correct that misinformation, I think younger members, younger ladies, younger girls, they have to think of a career in being good politicians, solid politicians who can bring about effect change for the better, and through the right means, have it passed, help bring about policies that will benefit women and children and, benefit everybody, but in particular women and children, so that they don't get to think and feel like they are not valued.
So we'll get into something more, a bit more personal. We understand, like I've been trying to get into people's discipline or habits or a certain thing they have an outlook to life. they are doing what they're doing, especially making an impact for the society, without them realizing that they are doing good. They don't even realize, right? For our viewers' sake, it is important to know the inside routines, things that, I think it's very important just to get a glimpse. Each one of us will have different, but what people think that you have an innate, sometimes an innate, but what does it take for not to give up and to keep, because the road to being selfless is not an easy road. It's a fulfilling road, but it's exhausting. And what keeps you on track has to be this
The
daily
secret sauce. You want to know what my secret sauce?
Yes. So
yeah. Well, I don't really have too much in that direction, but like I mentioned, growing up, we had a lot of Rinpoches passing through, and so I had the opportunity of playing the devil's advocate because I was studying in a Roman Catholic convent, so I would pick up a lot of arguments and question them thoroughly, and then I would take those answers and go and challenge the nuns, and so I was playing devil's advocate on both ends. So I guess I did get a little bit of a grounding for recognizing your own innate nature a little earlier. But having said that, it's not easy. There are lazy days, of course. You don't want to do anything, but that's when you feel you can afford to give yourself a cheat day. But otherwise, there's meditation, there's yoga, you get up early, and
you slide it in as if this is like just so easy but a lot of people struggle. It does sound okay, meditation, then okay, yoga, but then it's a discipline, no? Like,
yes,
it's a practice.
It's a practice, and you can't. If you don't start, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? So you have to start, and it's okay to start at whatever stage, like as a senior, you start very early on. You could do like I remember in schools I used to at least fast on maybe the full moons or on the 15th day if like the lunar calendar and the Julian calendar didn't always match. In those days, we didn't have this dual system of calendars, so I used to always try and sneak a thing of datto. And so sort of then you follow that, and you just, that fasting was one thing that
So
happened.
fasting as in...
so you don't eat from sunrise to sunset.
At that point, did you understand why you're doing it, or you just took it as
that was a practice. I just took it as a practice.
Now you understand it deeper, why fasting is important.
Yes. It's a good
Would you like to
thing.
share that?
No, but it's also good.
These are the sauces,
It's good cleansing for your system. It gives your stomach some rest from all the munching and eating that you do. And there are lots of health benefits now people are attributing to fasting. And
it's not a new trend, Mula. No, it comes
it's like in school that was what we used to do. And then when you got to Shereptsi, it was not necessarily the fasting part of it anymore, but more like we used to have this little altar room in the girls' hostel. And then my friend Kunzang and I, we were the caretakers, Kyunye types, during our turn. And remember, we used to go there and do our cha and say the demin. I don't know whether we said it every day, but it felt like we did. There was a time when I thought I knew the Daemon by heart. Like if someone was saying that prayer, you could recite along with them. Of course, all that changed again when you start working. From Shereptsi, then went to college. And there I chanced upon meditation as an important factor of the Henan, the sect of Buddhism. So that fascinated me a bit. Because the Drupakaju sect also, we talk a lot about Gom and a lot of practice. Nyamlin was something that is supposed to deepen your understanding of, inward looking and things like that. So started reading up first and then saying, okay, how about trying to practice it? And then...
But you have it as a daily And it's
No,
consistent.
so it was not exactly daily, but you did it as and when you could, because in college, I
So you
think
got a
there's
familiarization with it
yeah,
early on,
a
remember?
little bit. You understood a little bit from the questions you had earlier with the Rinpoches, and then later on when you read a lot more and tried to assimilate that. I mean, these at that stage it was all theoretical knowledge, right? So theory in itself, while it's good, it sharpens your thinking processes, but beyond that, you're not putting into practice. Now, kindness was something different. That's like the compassion and kindness part of it. It was easier because then you choose not to be angry if someone did something and you actually, initial reaction, so you stopped reacting, tried your best not to react. And so those were small steps along the way. So then you come into the workspace, and there you feel you really had to practice your patience. So
Exercise.
patience was something that was like in short supply.
Yes.
And when you had to get work done and it was taking forever, you still had to try your best not to lose it and try to hold it all together. So patience. Then therefore, now if you remembered what I was mentioning earlier on, so it's like accumulation, kindness,
Yes.
generosity, then compassion, patience. It's all coming
Yes,
together,
yes.
stringing along. And then suddenly you chance upon Tarayana, and then there's like, it's all about giving of yourself selflessly. And I see that firsthand with Her Majesty doing it. And so it's easier to emulate, to just follow that.
Yes.
And so then that became another practice. And it kind of builds on to each other. And it's not that you do it every day, that I did. I don't say I do it every day, but I do spend a few quiet
it's there
moments.
in your DNA,
Yes.
which is, it's like floating all the
and
time.
then after that, okay, then all the pilgrimages and all the initiations, you sit and you listen to Rinpoches and you seek, take initiations on a certain Buddhist practices and things like that. Then you have to practice. And so, that's when then all that again resurfaced, the cha and the prayers and things like that resurfaced a bit. And I also went for a stint long ago, Vipassana course, and so 10 days of absolute silence. I mean, if you've heard me talk, you've seen me here around long enough to know that I can talk, but I wasn't sure whether I could stay silent and just be by myself, with no phone, no notebook, pen, pencil, nothing, no chain, nothing. So 10 days of absolute silence, except when you were...
Just with you and your thoughts and emotions.
Yes. So that, to me, that was a very nice break, and I enjoyed it. I did a 10-day, and I wanted to go back and do a 20-day.
Yes.
And then there was another 40 days, but I never really got the opportunity because can't get away for that long from both work as well as family obligations. So,
but you got a glimpse of what
yes,
and you can be.
It was amazing. So ever since,
or what you are.
I have been doing my best to spend a couple of the early morning hours in sort of just being in a very reflective mood and being silent and just being by myself. So that's sort of something that I've built in over the years. And yoga now, as you become older, you can't jog too much, or go for really long walks in the cold winter months. So then maybe stick to basic yoga, stretches and
really
things like that.
do seem to have, navigated your life with the purpose, and then incorporated all these little positive things that shaped you, grounded you, and nurtured and impacted a lot of lives. I would like to know that. I know that you also grew up with you are a voracious reader. What are the other very conventional art mediums that you have touched upon and that has helped you? And besides your meditation, and what is there anything that you have tried your hands on? What has it made you feel?
Yeah, particularly, I think just dabbling in paints is something.
The visual, the
It's
real
quite,
canvas and
yeah, just
with the brushes.
canvas and brush. I think
I have seen.
that's sort of. I'm not an artist by any description, but it allows me to be free and sort of just be by myself, and whatever I'm working on is sort of reflective of what's going on inside. So some days they're really colorful and the visuals, it comes out very nice, but other days it's mucky and it's sort of, I feel that that's just a self-expression of sorts, not necessarily as an art piece, but dabbling in it sort of helps me unwind, and it relaxes me quite a bit. Of course, I've also tried weaving, yet mata, like growing up, that was always handy. It was around. We had a few weavers. My mother used to have a few weavers around, so it was always nice to just jump into one of those looms and, of course, they didn't like us meddling with their stuff, but yeah, so one of the first things I did, I think, with maybe most probably my second or third pay, I went and got myself a titha loom. I wanted to weave, but then there was like really no time for it. Between work and Tarayana happened so quickly, so.
Aum Chime, when you're saying you were not an artist, you're not an artist, but you dabble with, because you're looking at it just as a painter, But I'll have to give it to you that you are a true artist. You've lived your life as an art because you were curious, courageous, compassionate, and in action.
Ah, that's very generous.
That's with that we will end the session, and always really,
thank you for having me.
And your blessings for VAST Bhutan and all the kids.
Always, they're doing such fantastic work.